Perhaps lately, called this the phase of the disintegration of the old ego, the moment when the self, shaped over the years by family, society, school, and culture, begins to be challenged from within. This is not disorientation, but a necessary process. The ego starts confronting the self. Perhaps you once believed that a stable job, a good income, and being loved by others would bring happiness. But now, amidst achievements others envy, you feel empty. Every morning, as you wake up, you ask yourself, is this all there is? Am I wasting my life? No one teaches you how to face this feeling because society always praises certainty, stability, and success. But Jung warned, the shadow will not leave you in peace. That part of your unconscious that you've suppressed, denied, or forgotten will rise through unease, depression, or an indescribable urge, all to force you to turn inward. You begin to re-examine all the obvious things in your life, as if flipping over the paintings hung on the wall, searching for what lies behind that you've never seen. Phrases like, "This is how it should be," "Adults must," "Everyone does it this way," start to lose their weight. Another voice rises within you. But is that true for me? It's hard to live in a world that operates on patterns while you begin to doubt every one of those patterns. You go to work, but feel soulless. You meet friends, but feel distant. You sit amidst joy, but feel like an outsider. Doubt creeps into every corner, every habit, every dream, every choice. Not because you're negative, but because you're waking up. Jung called this moment the call of the self, the whole essence within you, trying to awaken you from the social role you've been assimilated into for too long. And you cannot ignore that call. No matter how much you try to drown it out with work, entertainment, relationships, or busyness, it returns, stronger and clearer. A man in his 40s, after suddenly losing his father, shared that his entire worldview collapsed. The family values and definitions of success inherited from previous generations no longer convinced him. He started going into the forest every weekend, not to escape, but to listen to the inner voice he had lost for too long while chasing reasonable goals applauded by others. When you start questioning what once seemed certain, you're not lost. You're detoxifying your mind. You're dismantling the mask you've worn too long to be recognized, loved, or accepted. And that process, though painful, is one of the bravest things you've ever done. Jung once said, "Where your fear is, there is your task." When you question your own life, you are awakening. And that awakening is the first tremor marking the transformation of the soul. No one enters the most beautiful phase of life still carrying their old belief system intact. You must shed what's outdated to make space for what is truly yours to bloom. From the outside, it may look like you're falling into a midlife crisis, but inside, a rebirth is beginning. Every I thought from the past is being challenged to pave the way for the I know of the future. And the truth is, if you're doubting everything, if what once held meaning now feels vague, then congratulations. You're not lost. You're stepping through a doorway. The only catch is that the door only opens from within. And this is just the first step. Because when you begin to question everything you once thought was certain, you're touching the starting point of a profound evolutionary journey. This path will continue to unfold layer by layer, from losing connection with the past, questioning your values, to the moment you can no longer live as you once did. Each subsequent sign is not separate but linked, like steps leading you toward your true self. Sign 2. You feel disconnected from the past. After you begin questioning everything that seemed obvious, something strange starts to happen. You feel yourself slipping away from what you once clung to. It's as if the past no longer holds you. Carl Jung referred to this phenomenon as detachment from the old ego, a necessary phase in the process of individuation, when the soul begins to step out of the shell constructed by society, the past, and the ego. You're not rejecting the past, you've simply outgrown it. You start to notice that conversations that once excited you now feel bland. Old friends, though they still laugh, share, and show up regularly, leave you feeling lonelier than ever. The places that once made you feel part of something now feel like a stage you stepped off long ago. But you are still trapped backstage. No one said anything wrong. No one treated you poorly. It's just that the energy no longer aligns. It's like a frequency slightly off-key, just enough to make everything feel unreal. You still smile, nod, and live the old life. But deep inside, a part of you whispers, "I'm no longer here." Have you ever experienced this? Since starting your job, you feel a growing disconnect from your close college friends. You still meet monthly, talk about old times, and laugh in familiar places. But you gradually realize that in each meeting, you no longer feel the sense of belonging you but not yet clear on who you'll become. This silence terrifies many. They retreat to the familiar, choosing comfort over freedom. But if you're brave enough to stay with that emptiness, you'll discover that disconnection is the first step toward reconnection, not with the world, but with your soul. In truth, we often cling too long to what's old, not because it still fits, but because we fear losing ourselves if we let go. But if you truly listen, you'll see that the pain doesn't come from loss. It comes from staying too long with a version that's no longer you. You don't need to do anything to speed up this process. Just recognize it, acknowledge it, and allow yourself to let go of what has served its purpose. It could be a career, a group of friends, a city, or even a belief. There's nothing wrong with leaving. The mistake is staying, just because you once belonged. You're not alone, and you're not losing anything important. You're only shedding an old shell. You're changing frequencies, and not everyone will shift with you. Some will stay behind, some memories will fade, some roles will fall away like a worn-out garment. This is not the end. It's an invitation. An invitation from your soul, from the self, from the deepest part of you, calling you forward to where new, profound, and truer things await. You're no longer connected to the past, because you're no longer living in it. And then, after letting go of that place, a void begins to emerge. With nothing left to hold on to, no old maps to follow, you stand in your life as if truly present for the first time. But in that very void, something new starts to form. You begin to ask, if what once defined me is no longer true, then what is truly true for me? Sign 3. You question what truly matters. This isn't a fleeting thought born of exhaustion, but an urge rising from deep within your soul. A persistent, smoldering gnawing that makes it impossible to return to living as you once did. Carl Jung once said, "If the path before you is clear, you're probably on someone else's." Thus, you must always ask yourself, what is the path I need to take? That question cannot be answered unless you first ask, what is real? What is enough? What truly matters to me? As old values crack and once close relationships grow distant, you begin to see clearly. You've spent too much time living by others' standards. You pursued stability because you were taught it was safe. You amassed reputation, money, degrees, because you believed that was success. But when all of it is finally in your grasp, you suddenly realize it doesn't bring a sense of being alive. They're like fine porcelain in a display case, beautiful, valuable, but cold. They fill space, but they don't make you bloom. You look back and see, you've lived to achieve something, but not to feel life. You've been running toward a finish line without ever asking, do I want to get there? You're like a sailor waking up in the middle of the sea after years of navigating by someone else's chart. You always thought you were heading in the right direction. The map seemed clear, and everyone around you was sailing with the same wind. But one morning, you realize the compass in your heart has long veered off that course. The familiar stars no longer guide you. You drop anchor, stand silently on the deck, and for the first time ask, where do I truly want to make port? That moment isn't loud or dramatic, just a quiet breeze, enough to make everything that once seemed certain feel fragile. And you know, it's time to put away the old map and learn to listen to yourself to find a new direction. When you question what truly matters, you're stepping into uncharted territory. No one can give you the answer. Not parents, not teachers, not even a partner can define it for you. Only the silence within can guide you through that haze. Jung believed that every awakening begins with a crisis of values. You feel the world operating as it always has, but your mind no longer finds it true. What once brought you joy now leaves you weary. What were once life goals now feel like meaningless repetition. And then a question emerges, sometimes small but sharp as a blade. What am I waking up for each morning? Questions about what matters have always been there. But when you were busy chasing life, you didn't hear them. Only when you lose connection with the past, when the old things no longer hold you, do these questions surface. Not to panic you, but to lead you into a real life. This process always comes with pain because it forces you to let go of the illusions that once helped you survive. But you must choose. Either continue living in a broken frame or bravely build a new system of values, starting with absolute honesty with yourself. You'll find yourself drawn to simple yet inspiring things, deep conversations, a quiet sunset, and a piece of writing that touches an unnamed emotion. Things with no market value, that don't make you more famous or richer. In words, it speaks in feelings, urges, and clarity without reason. Sometimes it's uneasy when stepping into a familiar place, though nothing seems wrong. Sometimes it's an inexplicable peace when you think of a new idea, a path you've never taken. Others may call you a dreamer, but you know something is urging you to follow that direction, even if you can't yet explain it. Intuition is like a seed buried long ago. You don't recall planting it. Perhaps it came from a childhood memory, a forgotten emotion, or a desire once stifled. For a long time, you lived as if it didn't exist. But then, without warning, an inner spring begins to stir within you. Not loudly, just a warm tremor, a gentle vibration, as if something is sprouting in the depths of your soul. You feel pulled in a new direction, not by logic, but by a quiet pull. That's when your anima or animus speaks, not to seize control, but to remind you, there's a part of you that has never fully lived. Jung said, "Intuition does not denote something contrary to reason, but something outside the province of reason." When you connect with intuition, you're touching a deeper layer of consciousness, where the personal and collective unconscious intersect. Answers come not from thinking harder, but from listening deeper. You may have been taught that only what's logical is trustworthy. But now, logic alone no longer persuades you, because you've begun to feel what's true rather than think it. And strangely, when you trust that feeling, everything starts to change. You meet people you never expected, who say exactly what you needed to hear. You find a book on a shelf, open it randomly, and read a passage that feels written for you. You wander into a street and discover a small cafe, realizing you've found a new place for your life. These aren't coincidences. This is synchronicity. Jung described synchronicity as when two seemingly unrelated events carry profound meaning when they occur together in your personal experience. In other words, it's when the universe mirrors your inner changes with external signs, and you sense it, not through reasoning, but through intuition. That's when you know, I'm on the right path, even if I don't know the destination. I once knew a 28-year-old man who left his programming job to travel across the country on a motorcycle. He said the decision wasn't impulsive. It came from a quiet moment. One morning, on a day off, while in the bathroom, he looked in the mirror and heard a clear sentence in his mind. "If not now, when?" No one spoke those words to him, but they rang like an inner command. And he went, after years of throwing himself into work. On that journey, he met a companion, then a lover, and then himself. Intuition isn't loud. It doesn't overwhelm you. But if you listen, it will guide you through turns that reason wouldn't dare take. And you'll realize some things you know instantly, not because someone taught you, but because your soul has always known. All you need is enough stillness to hear it. Jung believed the path to wholeness isn't about following a plan, but accepting guidance from the invisible, what he called the self, your higher essence. When you connect with intuition, you're not just living smarter, you're living truer. You're letting your soul take the wheel instead of fear. Intuition doesn't give you a map, but it places a living compass in your hand. When you start trusting it, each step becomes less frightening, not because you know the destination, but because you begin to believe you can become the person who will reach it. And then, something unexpected happens. You no longer want to stand still. As the inner call grows clearer, it doesn't just want you to listen, it wants you to change. The initial awakening, gentle as a breeze, is now gathering into a wave. A yearning to live true to yourself, to grow into the fullest possibility of who you are, begins to surge. Sign 5. You feel an intense yearning to grow. The feeling erupts, fierce and undeniable. It's when you begin to feel an overwhelming, even irresistible yearning to grow, to transform, to become something greater than ever before. Carl Jung called this the confrontation with the process of individuation, when you are compelled to break free from the cocoon of the ego to become something broader, deeper. Like a seedling in the earth, you cannot plan the moment it breaks through. It doesn't come because you're ready. It comes because you can no longer stay in the darkness. You start to feel restless with what was once stable. Not because the world has changed, but because you've outgrown the old space. Like a river in flood season, you can no longer flow obediently within narrow banks. You need to break through. You need to carve a new path. You need freedom to become yourself, even if it means shattering every old structure. It's like a tree that has reached the limits of its ceramic pot, its roots twisting, pressing against the walls. Its branches can stretch no further. The tree isn't wilting, but it can no longer live if it remains confined. It must be uprooted, planted in deep soil where it can breathe and spread. And this process, though vital, is painful. Roots will be wounded, leaves may fall, but that is the price of true growth. A new energy begins to form within you, not fierce like anger, nor vibrant like joy, but smoldering, compressed, like the earth trembling before a seed breaks through the surface. You can no longer go to work as before, talk as before, or live the old life. It's not that you're ungrateful for the past, but the past can no longer contain the version of you that's rising. Like an eagle leaving the nest to learn to fly, like a fire that must burn to avoid consuming itself from within. You start learning anew, listening, questioning, creating, and engaging. Not for fame, money, or grades, but because you know you can't live another day lying to yourself. You may not know who you'll become, but you know one thing for certain. If you don't change, you'll wither. And so, bit by bit, you begin breaking molds, dismantling old rhythms, throwing yourself into new experiences, even without guaranteed outcomes. Like spring arriving without needing consent, inner growth doesn't wait for you to be ready. It comes, sweeping you along like a seasonal wind, and you have only two choices: resist and stay stuck, or surrender to it and become something greater than yourself. When you enter this phase, you no longer fear starting over. You fear living forever in a half-hearted state. You no longer need safety, you need meaning, and you start doing everything to get closer to it, learning, seeking, creating, questioning, and daring to act. Every book you choose, every new person you talk to, every decision you make stems from a deep inner drive to grow, so you can live authentically. And then you realize growth isn't a goal to achieve. It's a way of living, a way of breathing, a commitment to yourself that says, I will no longer retreat from myself. I will go to the furthest reaches of my human potential. And when you live like that, you're not just growing, you're being reborn. Sign 6. You begin to eliminate toxic relationships and circumstances. What happens when growth becomes a vital need? The answer is a growing, unmistakable urge to let go of toxic relationships, circumstances, and environments. Unlike the quiet inner shifts before, this transformation often comes with a sense of heaviness, exhaustion, even physical obstacles, gatherings that drain your energy, conversations that leave you empty, spaces that make you feel like you're suffocating. But there's a moment in the journey when you start to see exactly what's strangling you. And at that point, you can no longer pretend not to notice. You begin to see the connections once colored by habit or obligation. You see someone who always makes you shrink to be loved. You recognize an environment that constantly makes you doubt your worth. You notice conversations that, despite lasting hours, leave no trace of vitality. And then one day, you just want to stand up and walk away. Not because you're selfish, but because your soul can no longer endure being tormented by what's no longer true. Jung called this phase the disintegration of the shadow. When you've dared to look at your darkness, the vulnerable, manipulable parts that once traded truth for acceptance, those connections tied to that shadow naturally begin to crack. You don't need to create conflict. The truth is strong enough to break the flawed structures holding you back. Picture a forest. In it, there are always trees that have rotted but still stand, seeming to be part of the ecosystem. Only when a great wind sweeps through do you see them uprooted, revealing their hollow core. Transformation is like that. It sweeps away what stood firm, not through vitality, but through familiarity. And though you may grieve, you also understand they cannot join you in your new season of growth. You may have clung to a relationship for years, but each meeting required you to suppress yourself. You may have lived in a consensual community, but deep down, you knew you were never truly present. Like a river blocked by tangled roots, the flow continues, but becomes stagnant, murky, and slow. And as your desire to live authentically grows, you know clearly, the riverbed must be cleared. You start learning to say no, no to control, no to being diminished, no to roles that are too old, not out of resentment, but out of self-respect. Jung didn't advocate cutting ties out of hurt. He said, knowing your darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. But he also emphasized that the truth must be laid bare if you wish to grow. And the truth is, not everything that once fit you will fit forever. Not everyone who walked beside you will walk to the end. And not every affection is love. I'll warn you, separation always comes with loss. But at the same time, you'll feel a very real relief, as if you've set down a stone you forgot you were carrying. Space begins to open up. You breathe easier. You start having nourishing conversations again. Silence is no longer frightening, but a place of recovery. Your days are no longer swept along by schedules, but begin to have their rhythm, your rhythm. And then something miraculous happens. New people, places, and opportunities start finding you. Not because you sought them, but because the frequency you're emitting has changed. You no longer need masks to be accepted. You no longer have to hide your deepest desires. You start living more clearly, more authentically, and in that clarity, you attract connections on the same frequency, where you don't need to defend or strain, where you can be yourself without asking permission. Not everyone will understand. Some will accuse you of changing, being cold, not the same. But you know, you're not cold. You're warming up to yourself. You're not callous. You're learning to give love where it belongs. You're not changing for anyone else, but because you can no longer bear living a pretense. Carl Jung believed, "A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them." Stepping away from toxic things isn't running away. It's passing through yourself. And now you no longer need to endure to be loved, to stay silent, to be kept. You choose yourself. And that is one of the most powerful acts of awakening. And then, after all of it, after you've let go of what's toxic, after you've dared to live for your true growth, you no longer feel you're merely changing. You start to see clearly what no longer belongs to you. We are taught that to heal, we must overcome sadness, escape negativity, or become a better version of ourselves. But Jung saw deeper. He recognized that humans possess not only a conscious mind, but also a vast, unconscious realm, home to repressed emotions, rejected memories, stifled instincts, and parts of ourselves we abandoned to be loved or accepted. And the paradox is this: those denied parts hold the key to the deepest healing. Picture your soul as an ancient cave buried deep within you. Above ground is your everyday life, light, the voice of reason, and familiar paths painted by society. But below, in the sediment covered by time and memory, lies a network of tunnels you rarely visit. There are passages you've glimpsed and turned away from, where anger you weren't allowed to feel, fears you were forced to suppress to seem strong, or desires labeled as wrong or unacceptable reside. These tunnels are sealed by false beliefs, denial, or prolonged silence, to the point you almost forget they exist. Integration, in Jung's view, is not about blasting through the rock to erase all traces. It is about carrying a torch and descending, step by step, with reverence. It is tracing the symbols, the wild and nameless emotions, like ancient carvings on stone walls, because they carry messages that language cannot convey. Each time you face a rejected emotion, a chamber in the cave opens. Each time you listen to the faint echo within, a new path is uncovered. You don't fix yourself in the darkness. You unearth yourself. And in that process, you not only encounter what you once feared, but rediscover the treasures of the soul that were buried. The sensitivity once called weakness, the creativity once stifled, the freedom sacrificed for acceptance. In this process, you don't become a new person. You become a whole person. Not in the sense of being pristine or perfect, but in the sense of being authentic, complete, no longer at war with yourself. Many confuse healing with suppression. For example, when someone overcomes anxiety by keeping themselves perpetually busy, they believe they are being strong. But in truth, they are building a fortress to avoid hearing the true voice within. Jung called this shadow avoidance. And the cruel irony is, the more the shadow is repressed, the more it subtly influences life, emotional outbursts, self-criticism, or dramatic relationships we deem irrational. In contrast, integration doesn't make you lose control. It allows you to see yourself clearly without panic, to touch a wound without being consumed by it, to understand an emotion without being ruled by it. Remarkably, this process isn't confined to the mind. The body responds too. Those beginning to integrate often feel profound exhaustion, as if they've halted a war that raged for years. Some experience vivid dreams filled with symbols. These are not flaws. They are the mind restructuring itself, inviting forgotten parts to return. And what's astonishing is this: the soul has its wisdom. It knows when you're ready. It doesn't force you to face what you cannot yet bear. Healing through integration is not a visible milestone. It flows like an underground stream, silent but persistent, and only those quiet enough to listen will notice. Then, one day, you begin to feel something has shifted in how you exist in the world. Not from the outside, but from the inner structure, where layers of the ego are crumbling, making way for a wholeness taking shape. That's when the signs of healing through integration begin to emerge, and if you pay attention, they are present, even in the smallest details. Number 2, 12 signs you are healing through integration. Sign 1. You feel emotions without being controlled by them. In the past, when anger arose, you might have immediately shouted, exploded, or conversely tried to swallow it down as if it was something shameful. When sadness struck, you sought every way to distract yourself, overworking, scrolling through your phone for hours, or pretending to be fine while inwardly fracturing. This was because you were never taught how to sit with emotions, only how to flee from or suppress them. But then, one day, you notice yourself in a tense conversation, and instead of reacting instantly, you feel a quiet space within your chest. A part of you still feels anxious or irritated, but you're not swept away by it. You realize, oh, this is the fear of being misunderstood, speaking up. And in just a few seconds of pausing to listen to that emotion, the intensity of your negative reaction diminishes by half. You begin to respond from a place of vivid awareness. You're shifting from unconscious reflex to conditioned response. In depth psychology, Jung called this ability the development of the central personality, a part of the individuation process, where the ego is no longer the absolute driver, but begins to collaborate with other parts of the psyche. Emotions are no longer things to fix, but become messages. Anger is no longer a sin, but a signal that your boundaries have been violated. Sadness is no longer weakness, but a call to acknowledge an unrecognized loss. Imagine you're sitting during a storm. Instead of being swept away by the wind, you stand in the eye of the storm, neither resisting it nor letting it carry you off. And when the storm subsides, you won't remember how you made it through, how you survived. You may not even be certain if the storm has truly ended. But one thing is certain. Drove you to rage with a single contemptuous glance now only makes you raise an eyebrow, and you realize, does this need to trigger a reaction in me? You're no longer drawn into the silent battle of right versus wrong, victim versus perpetrator, but instead begin to feel a curiosity. What part of myself am I seeing through this person? From Jung's perspective, intense emotions towards someone are often a sign of projection, when we cannot recognize or accept a part of ourselves and unconsciously project it onto another, like a screen reflecting our inner world. The person you hate may embody traits you were forbidden to express as a child. The one who hurt you may have touched an old, unhealed wound. Thus, your emotional reaction is not entirely about them. It's about you. Imagine you're looking into a mirror in a dimly lit room. The person across from you says something that stings, and you instantly feel anger. But instead of the mirror shattering, this time you step closer and look at the reflection. You see a familiar pair of eyes, not theirs, but yours, at 10 years old, scolded unjustly and unable to speak up. You're no longer in conflict with the person opposite you. You're beginning to have a dialogue with the shadow within yourself. When you reach this point, the emotions tied to those who hurt you don't vanish, but they gain distance, depth, and meaning. You're no longer someone controlled by old wounds, but an explorer of your unconscious map. And sometimes you look at that person and no longer see a villain, but a human carrying their wounds, also unconscious, also lost. Not to excuse them, but to free yourself from being bound to them. Sign 3. You embrace uncertainty. As you stop being trapped in old reactions to others, as wounds cease to guide your perspective, the next sign gradually emerges. You begin to feel at ease with things you cannot control. This is one of the quietest yet most profound signs of healing through integration, the acceptance of reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. In the past, uncertainty was something that sent you into panic. Not knowing what someone thought of you, uncertainty about your job's future, or reluctance to let go of the old because you didn't know what would come next. Your mind would fill the void with all sorts of worst-case scenarios, just to avoid the simple truth. Life is unpredictable. But as you begin to integrate the unconscious parts of yourself, you no longer need the world to feel safe because you're cultivating safety from within. Imagine you're adrift on the open sea. Before, losing the map would have driven you to madness. But now, instead of trying to control the waves, you start listening to the movement of the water, feeling the rhythm of the wind, even finding beauty in the aimless journey. You realize the only map you truly need is the sense of direction within, not a detailed plan drawn by the ego. From a psychological perspective, the ability to embrace uncertainty is not just a sign of emotional maturity. It is a direct result of dismantling the defense mechanisms built in childhood, where everything unknown was labeled dangerous. Jung called this a reconnection with the self, the deeper essence beyond the surface ego, where contradictions and imperfections are seen as part of the whole. In this state, you don't need to force yourself to be positive. You can be afraid and still move forward. You can doubt and still trust. Uncertainty is no longer an enemy, but a strange companion, reminding you to stay alert. And this brings an indescribable sense of safety, not the false calm of control, but a quiet steadiness born from no longer resisting life's unpredictability. Sign 4. You are truly present in the moment. The moment you no longer need the world to operate according to your plans, when uncertainty ceases to be a threat and becomes an open space for life to breathe freely, something else begins to happen, quietly and subtly. You start to be truly present in the moment. Not as a technique, not as a mindfulness exercise you force yourself to practice, but as a natural state, a presence that is simply being and feeling. In the past, you might have sat in a cafe, scrolling through your phone for hours, unable to recall the taste of the coffee you drank. There were conversations where you nodded repeatedly, but your mind was racing toward the future or slipping back to an old event. Though your body was there, your mind was always elsewhere. You lived more in memories or expectations than in reality. But then one day, as you soak in a bath, each drop of water running through your hair makes you feel alive. You sit with a close friend, not saying much, not trying to tell stories, yet you feel connected. You eat and taste the distinct flavor of each bite. You walk and feel your feet touch the ground. You breathe and are aware that you are breathing. This is no longer an act of will, but the natural outcome of a soul that has lessened its inner resistance. From the perspective of depth psychology, true presence is a sign of an ego that has stopped defending itself. When many parts of you remain unintegrated, the unconscious consumes much of your energy to maintain defenses against emotions, against memories, against uncertainty. This silent tension prevents you from staying in the present. But as the process of integration unfolds, as the shadow ceases to be rejected and begins to be welcomed, a vast amount of mental energy is freed. You no longer expend the light and accepted, you experience something new. You no longer crave external validation as you once did, not because you've become cold or indifferent, but because you no longer define your worth by others' reactions. And this creates a quiet yet profound freedom. Picture a tree. When its roots are shallow, it depends on steady rain, warm sun, and soft soil to survive. It relies on external conditions to thrive. But once its roots sink deep into the earth, it no longer frets over stormy winds, dry ground, or the passing judgments of others. It stands firm because it knows what it is, connected to nourishment from within the earth itself. Jung called this a shift from the ego to the self. When you identify with the ego, the part that always fears rejection, always needing affirmation, any external gaze can unsettle you. But as you connect with the self, the deeper, more stable part unbound by roles or social images, you are no longer swayed by validation because you have recognized your worth. From this, something remarkable happens. You can be in a room full of dissenting opinions and not feel shaken. You can speak your truth without needing everyone to agree. You can even accept that someone doesn't like you, and it's no longer a disturbance, but simply a reality you live with. Sign 6. You feel compassion for your old self. And as you become deeply aware of your worth, you realize how harshly you've judged yourself in the past. But instead of disdain, shame, or regret, you feel a desire to embrace that old self with all the love and compassion you have. In the past, you may have done things that now feel hard to accept. You clung to toxic relationships, tried to prove your worth to gain recognition, or hurt others simply because you didn't know how to handle your own emotions. You lived as if meeting every standard would make you worthy. Now, with greater understanding, you might look back on those actions and see them as immature, contradictory, or even wrong. But unlike before, instead of rushing to deny, reject, or erase them, you begin to understand. That old self wasn't bad, just unequipped with enough awareness. It acted from what it thought was best at the time. Within the limits of its understanding, it tried to honor its emotions. Like a lost child, it wasn't foolish. It simply hadn't been shown the way. You no longer look back on the past with judgment, but with a heart full of understanding. Carl Jung said, "We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." In healing practices, embracing those old, messy, chaotic, or misguided parts is an essential part of integration. Imagine returning to an old room where you once lived, with all your mistakes, pain, and wrong decisions still etched on the walls. Before, you wanted to tear that room apart. But now, you stand in the middle, no longer angry, only quiet. You dust off an old picture frame, pick up an unsent letter, smile at the shadow of your former self, and thank it for surviving those hardships. When you feel compassion for your old self, you're no longer trapped in the loop of, "I should have." You don't erase your history, but you rewrite your relationship with it. And this, more than any technique, frees you from the unconscious cycle of guilt and self-judgment. Sign 7. You no longer expend energy in internal battles. And when you muster the courage to look at your old self with compassion instead of judgment, a unique kind of quiet begins to emerge. Not the silence of repression, but the natural calm of a mind no longer torn between opposing parts. You stop expending energy in battles that only you are fighting. Recall those days when you woke up already exhausted. Sleep-deprived, your mind barely awake, would start shouting a chorus of conflicting voices. "Today, I have to perform perfectly," versus, "But I'm not good enough," or "I should rest," versus, "Resting will leave me behind." You stepped into the world carrying a hidden battlefield. Even if you appeared fine on the outside, inside, you were arguing with yourself ceaselessly. Jung called this the fragmentation of the ego, when different parts of the psyche don't communicate or cooperate, but clash. One part of you longs for freedom, while another fears the consequences. One part craves love, while another forbids vulnerability. And you stand in the middle, a soldier trying to mediate, striving to keep everything balanced. But the cost is a profound exhaustion that no one else sees. Then, as you delve deeper into the process of integration, as the abandoned parts of you are invited back to the inner round table, the shouting gradually turns into whispers. The parts that once vied for control now begin to yield space to one another. You can envision this transformation as a family meeting once fraught with tension. Before, each member representing a part of you, the wounded child, the perfectionist, the rebel, the safety seeker, jostled to seize the microphone. But as you start acknowledging each one, listening to every voice without rushing to judge, The meeting ceases to be a dispute. It becomes a healthy dialogue. In this transformation, you no longer burn through vast amounts of energy suppressing yourself. You no longer need to don a suit of armor each morning to control emotions to more people. So, please like and share this video to spread these lessons to your loved ones and friends, or leave a comment saying, "I cherish my life," if you're ready for the journey with the next 6 signs. Sign 8. You begin to notice synchronicities. As internal battles cease and you start to walk with unity rather than division, something miraculous begins to happen, not just within your mind, but in the external world. Strange coincidences, just-in-time events, messages appearing through people, dreams or symbols, all begin to unfold naturally, leaving you wondering, is this just chance? Carl Jung was the first to introduce this concept into psychology as a way to describe the connection between the inner and outer worlds, when a profound internal psychological state is mirrored by a meaningful external event. Jung believed that when a person begins to connect with the self, the deeper, whole essence within, the external world ceases to be entirely separate and starts to respond to that inner process. You think of someone you haven't seen in ages, and they suddenly call. You're pondering whether to change jobs, and a book falls from a shelf, opening to a page about the courage to step out of your comfort zone. You feel confused about your life's direction, and a stranger, in a fleeting moment, says something that awakens something within you. At first glance, these events seem unremarkable, but to an awakened and open mind, they carry messages. Synchronicities are not superstition or magic. They are manifestations of a world where the inner and outer no longer operate as separate systems. According to Jung, this happens when you live deeply, authentically, and connected to the layers of consciousness beyond the ego. In that state, symbols, images, and external events cease to be random and meaningless. They become hints. Imagine walking through a vast forest. When your mind is chaotic and fragmented, you hear nothing but your noise. But as your inner world grows calmer, You begin to hear the rustle of leaves, the whisper of the wind, the movement of animals. Synchronicities are those sounds, signals from a broader layer of consciousness, always present, waiting for you to be still enough to notice. This sign doesn't prove you're awakening or becoming special. It is simply the natural result of living in alignment with your true rhythm. And when you start noticing synchronicities, you understand. The journey of individuation is not just a psychological process, but a collaboration between your inner self and a wisdom far greater than you. A wisdom that speaks not in words, but in symbols, intuition, and meaningful coincidences. Sign 9. Dreams become spiritual messages. As synchronicities begin to appear like mysterious signals from the external world, you gradually realize that the inner world is whispering in its way. Not through logical thoughts or conscious words, but through an ancient, symbolic, and emotional language. Dreams. In the past, dreams might have been strange fragments you quickly forgot upon waking. You might have dreamed of being lost, falling into an abyss, or seeing someone who has passed away. Those dreams left you puzzled, or even unsettled. But as you enter the journey of integration, something shifts. You begin to remember your dreams more vividly. And not only do you remember them, but you also feel their weight. A simple dream lingers with you all day. A strange symbol recurs. A scene leaves you with tears. According to Jung, dreams are the voice of the unconscious. They exist not to confuse you, but to maintain balance between the ego and the deeper parts of the psyche. Each dream is a letter, written in symbolic language, carrying truths you haven't dared to think, don't want to see, but need to know. When you live too far from your true essence, dreams often present opposing images to pull you back to balance. As you draw closer to individuation, dreams cease to merely warn. They guide. For example, someone mired in chronic exhaustion might dream of being submerged in deep ocean waters, unable to breathe or struggle. Instead of dismissing the dream as fear of the ocean or nonsense, they begin to ask, what part of me is this deep sea? What is drowning me that I haven't dared to face? And when the answer comes through intuition, the dream has fulfilled its purpose, to awaken. Jung called this the dialogue between the conscious and unconscious. It's not a clear two-way conversation, but a dance of symbols, images, and emotions. You don't need to become an expert in dream interpretation. Sometimes simply recording, feeling, and trusting the recurrence of a symbol is enough. A snake, a dark room, a child, a collapsing bridge. All are invitations to look deeply into what is transforming within you. When you begin to honor dreams as living entities bearing wisdom, they become clearer, no longer chaotic or disjointed. You'll notice coherent threads between dreams, stories told night after night, as if an invisible direct matured enough to know what aligns with your true self. Intuition at this stage isn't a supernatural voice, a hallucination, or a mystical sign. It's the subtle undercurrent in every decision, the calm certainty when considering one option, the slight tightening when about to say something untrue. What's remarkable is this. When you live by intuition, you no longer need certainty to move forward. You don't need complete reasons to trust someone, decline an opportunity, or change direction. You only need to feel, "This is right for me now." And you trust that feeling as a compass, pointing to the only direction that matters, your true self. Sign 11. You know how to love with conscious love. As you begin to walk guided by the quiet voice of intuition, you simultaneously break free from old emotional patterns you hadn't even noticed before. Relationships cease to be spaces where you seek fulfillment, control, or self-affirmation, and instead become a mirror to see yourself clearly through another's eyes. From this, a new form of love begins to emerge. You know how to love with conscious love. In the past, love was often a blend of desire and lack. You loved someone because they made you feel valuable, soothed your fear of abandonment, or unconsciously resembled an unresolved figure from your past. When they loved you, you felt whole. That wasn't truly love, but a thirst to be seen, acknowledged, or healed through another. Jung called this projection, when we attribute our qualities, dreams, or disowned parts to someone else. Thus, we don't truly love the other. We love the reflection of ourselves in them. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." True love, when it touches you, doesn't just stir emotions, it demands transformation. But as the process of integration unfolds, as you learn to sit with pain, listen to intuition, hold contradictions, heal memories, and stop chasing expectations, love takes on a new form. It no longer comes to complete you, but offers a chance to practice your wholeness. You enter a relationship not to find a missing half, but to share what you've learned from within. Conscious love is not cold or calculated. It is love paired with awareness. You may love someone deeply, yet recognize when you're clinging, controlling, or waiting for them to validate your worth. Instead of blaming, you turn inward and ask, what part of me, unaddressed, is crying out through this love? This isn't doubting love, but honoring its depth. In conscious love, you can still feel hurt, but you don't use that hurt to manipulate. You can feel angry, but you express it rather than attack. You dare to show vulnerability without fearing it will be seen as weakness. And you can walk away when love no longer fosters life, rather than clinging out of fear of emptiness. Jung believed conscious love is one of the highest expressions of individuation. To love another fully, you must first reconcile deeply with yourself. No one can love another as they truly are without first daring to face and love their imperfect parts. Sign 12. You see your life as a meaningful journey, not chaos. When you know how to love with conscious love and stop seeking salvation in others, you begin to reconnect with a relationship you may have forgotten, the one with the flow of your own life. From this, a profound transformation emerges. You start to see your life not as a series of random events, but as a journey with an inner logic, direction, and meaning. This is the 14th sign. You see your life as a meaningful journey, not chaos. In the past, you may have looked back on your life with regret and anger. Wrong choices, trusted people who let you down, detours that left you lost. There were times you couldn't understand why bad things happened, why you had to endure them, or what it was all for. The world seemed to operate in harsh randomness, and you were just a small person caught in a meaningless whirlwind. But as integration deepens, as you dismantle defenses, listen to intuition, and love consciously, you begin to see something previously unclear: order within chaos. Jung once said, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." What you once saw as failures have now become foundational lessons. The pain that once shattered you turns out to be the raw material forging the depth you have today. The detours you thought were mistakes were the very paths leading you to your true direction. Jung called this teleology the belief that the human soul is shaped not only by the past, but also guided by a deeper purpose in the future. In other words, every experience is an essential part of becoming yourself. You no longer see life as a series of random accidents, but as a wise process, though its wisdom often becomes clear only in hindsight, with an awakened gaze. This doesn't mean you must accept every hurt as meant to be. It simply means you stop asking, "Why me?"